Welcome back. It is Bones, and let's go ahead and do a topic video. Now, first things first, I do want to say that although I am going to talk about DC icons, if you enjoyed that line or you collected that line, that's fine. I'm not here to say that it's garbage and that you're dumb for collecting it, although that's what a lot of people come at me about DC Multiverse, but that's fine. Everybody knows that I'm a big proponent of people collecting what they enjoy and not having to be harassed about it. Now, if you want to if you want to go back and collect a line that had about 30 figures, 80% of them using the same body, and about 6-7 females, go ahead, but it's going to be a short run because that's all basically that it was. I am actually doing this video is because I have come across a couple of other people doing videos where they say, bring back DC Icons, Icons did it right, and Icons is way better than McFarlane DC Multiverse. Now, I don't agree, but that's, cool if they want to think that. So I just wanted to do my own video and show why not necessarily true unless that's, your preferred scale and your preferred way of doing a line. Now, another reason I'm bringing this up is because I came across this little photo like in the interwebs, and it kind of made me chuckle because it is true. If people are now saying that, oh, DC Icons was so great, where were these people when DC Icons was being released? And basically nobody bought this line. And in all honesty, although people like to tout this line as something great, they weren't. It did not sell that great, which is why it had a limited run. Now, first off, let me say I do have experience with DC Icons. I have the Rebirth Superman right here. And let me just say right up front, these are some really nice looking figures. They do look good. They do have nice proportions and pretty interesting articulation, but it is a little bit outdated and ahead of its time, right? They have some cool ideas, but they just did not execute it very well. And the main big deterrent of this line, of course, was the scale. But if you look at the Superman, he looks really good. A quick rundown of the articulation and comparing it a little to DC Multiverse, you have the head articulation. Now, my Superman looks a little bit cross-eyed, but that's not going to take off any points. But what will take off points, he cannot look down very much, and he cannot look up to save his life. Now, if you wanted to get this guy in a flying pose, it is virtually impossible. His head will not move up at all. You do have side to side, which is a little bit stiff, and of course there is no head tilt. Now, when you look at McFarlane's DC Multiverse, I will use my Myleene DC Rebirth Superman. Now, if you look at his articulation, he can look down, he can look way up to put in flying poses, smooth right to left, and of course you can tilt his head to give him a little bit more character and life. Now, going back to the DC Icons, another thing is the arm articulation is fine, but one thing that is kind of funny on these figures is that although they have double pin, they basically can only get 90 degrees just because of the way the parts are designed. They cannot, go further than that. You can try and force it, but a lot of these were known to break if you force the arms. Now, once again, taking a look at my Rebirth Superman, he has double jointed elbows, but they work perfectly. And then moving down to the hands, of course, these DC Icons use that same one directional hinge for the hand, so you will not be getting any tilt. But when you look at McFarlane's DC Multiverse, they do have that awesome, innovative 4 ways of articulation. Now let's go ahead and go down a little bit. Now, this is something that you want to look at, and that is that This figure actually looks how Marvel Legends are starting to look now, where you do have some tilt underneath the upper chest, but they do omit the waist swivel. And although they do have two hinges here, you can barely get any front crunch out of it. So that's rather interesting. Even back is a little bit limited. Now, if you look at the McFarlane, of course, he gets full tilt side to side. You do have a lower waist swivel, and you also have an upper chest swivel, which allows you to twist them and get them in some more interesting poses. Slightly better crunch than this figure, but it can be, of course, worked on and made a lot better to please the articulation wants of the fans. Now, going ahead and moving down to the legs, you will notice that these do not have thigh cuts, and this is actually something that I prefer. And also, if you move the leg from side to side, you can also move the boot, which is also reminiscent of DC Multiverse, and I actually prefer this articulation. It just looks a lot cleaner. Now, you do have the double jointed knees, and these actually work very well. And at the foot, this is interesting because you have up and down that work really well, but you do not have side to side. You only have rocker, which is kind of interesting. And of course, no toe articulation to speak of. And when you look at my Rebirth Superman, of course, you got the double jointed knees, up and down at the foot, right to left, plus the rocker, plus toe articulation. Now, I think the biggest negative that these figures had was, of course, the scale. Now, I've actually got into it with people in the comments because I call these 5-inch figures, and they swear up and down that these are 6-inch figures, but I actually have receipts, and that is that I actually own a couple of these figures. Now, if you put the DC Rebirth next to the DC Icon Superman, you can see how small he is. And you can also say, well, Bones, be a little bit more realistic. This is just one comparison. Well, I actually have a second comparison. I actually have also Mr. Miracle from DC Icons. Now, this is a great looking figure. He kind of deviates from the same body book that Flash, Batman, and Superman use. So he has his own little sculpted details, but basically, if you run through it, it's the same limited articulation, no head movement, no forward crunch, no thigh cut, the same basically as I showed before. Now, the reason I have this guy out is actually I was excited to get this Icons figure, and when I got it, it was basically the nail in the coffin that I said I'm never buying another Icons figure, because here I actually have the 6-inch DC Universe Classics Mr. Miracle, and you could see the size difference and the size discrepancy, really saying that some of these DC Icons are actually a lot more 4-inch than they are 5-inch. Now, I don't want people's heads to explode. I'm just pretty much showing you the reality of what DC Icons was. And they were kind of all over the place. They had some figures that were really big, and they had some figures that were really small. Now, one thing I will not take away from DC Icons, and that is that they had some awesome accessories and displays way ahead of their time, using multiple hands, and on a smaller scale they were using also alternate heads. But of course, you can do this when you are making smaller scale figures, 5-inch, 4-inch. You have the budget to add all these accessories, and just look at Spin Master if you want to make a comparison. While these figures were selling at a basic regular scaled 6-inch figures, that is one of the reasons why I think they did not sell so well. Now, saying that these DC Icons were a disappointment is pretty much an understatement. A lot of people wanted to get into it, but they were just too small, and also were not widely distributed. So a lot of things against this line, but also two different takes on making toys. One was more of a collector, niche market, and kind of selling at a high price, while the other one is a large scale mass-produced, just regular figures for the regular people, the common folk, and also collectors if they would like to enjoy the DC Multiverse line. Now, I completely understand if DC Icons is your thing and that's what you wanted to collect, but if you know me, I rarely buy any figures smaller than 6 inch, and this of course takes me all the way back to the Mattel Batman line, which is really like the one of the first lines that I was collecting, you know, buying them at Kmart and at I think KB Toys and all that a long time ago. But the icons are definitely not for me. So let's go ahead and put it to bed. No, DC Icons is not a better line than McFarlane's DC Multiverse. It was just a different take on the line. But you're going to have to compare a line that made about 30 figures before it died to a line that has way surpassed 300. So I actually respect Icons. It was a very good try. A big swing and a miss. But it is what it is. You guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.